Governor Gavin Newsom, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Great to be with you.
All right, so we were in the spin room together back in 2019 with the Democrats. Now you're with the Republicans.
Yeah,
How's that feel?
Well, I'm about to find out in a few hours, but I'm hardly favored nation status, I think, at the Reagan Library in the Republican debate. So I think it's a difference between daylight and darkness.
Okay. What is your main message? Because a lot of people are going to say, what are you doing here?
Making a case for the Biden administration, making a case for what I think has been a masterclass the last 2.5 years, making a case for an economic policy that's the most consequential since FDR, making a case for investments in infrastructure after years and years of infrastructure week becoming a punchline, making a case for the fact that this guy, Joe Biden, took the economy that was at 14.7% unemployment down to 3.8% unemployment, 2/3 reduction in the inflation rate. Directionally, this country is doing extraordinarily well. I recognize everyone lives with unique circumstances, but as a macroeconomic reality, reality in this country is better than any other major democracy in the world.
You know, the Reagan Library is an impressive place. Obviously, it's a tribute to Ronald Reagan and his legacy. What do you think Ronald Reagan would think of this Republican Party?
I think he'd be offended and disgusted by it. I mean, remember, people have to go back. It's one of the it's a beautiful, beautiful speech. I say that as a Democrat. His last speech in the White House. It was a love letter to immigrants. He talked about the torch of Lady Liberty. Can you imagine those words coming from any of the candidates who will be assembled tonight? This is a guy in 1989, Ronald Reagan, that said these weapons of war don't belong on the streets, was opposed to those weapons of war. Ronald Reagan himself was not in denial about climate change. He saw it with his own eyes with the smog down here in LA and started the California Air Resources Board. I mean, these guys are in the Reagan Library, but they have nothing to do with his legacy.
You study conservative thought probably as much, if not more, than any other Democrat. You watch conservative media every day.
Yeah, mostly.
So
forgive me, Father.
You think deeply about what conservatives are thinking about. Why do you think Donald Trump is up as much as he is? What is he connecting with the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, he's up against the B team. I mean, he's up against the JV team. He's up against the XFL. He's up against those that are auditioning for vice president. But he's not up, I think, with the majority of American people, regardless of these situational polls. He was rejected. And not only did he reject his rejection, he tried to vandalize democracy. That said, he has a brand of populism that's very familiar. I've said it many, many times. The original Donald Trump came from the state of California in the Bay Area in Oakland. His name was Dennis Kearney in the 1880s. That had the same expression of exploitation around immigrants, same expression of exploitation around journalists and institutions. He plays an old book, it's an old saw, and it's one of grievance, it's one of weaponizing those grievances and differences, demeaning minorities and vulnerable communities. It's not my brand of politics, nor do I think it's the majority of Americans' brand.
But do you think he can win?
Absolutely. He won the last election, so that's a proof point. So I know
won the 2016 election. Not the 2020 election.
Well, he lost 2020, and he won
He says he won that election.
Exactly. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to make sure there's no
Well, we just made some real news there.
But the fact that he won the first time is all the evidence you need. And I say that soberly because I want to be in denial. I want to sort of play to the base saying, don't worry, oh my God, he can never win. He won, and people were talking like that then in 16. So let's disabuse ourselves that this guy's not a real threat. Here's the difference. He's not just a real threat to get back the White House. He's a real threat to our way of life, to democracy as we know it. I mean, it's a serious and consequential moment, and it requires clarity and moral fortitude. And that's why it's so important we stop the hand-wringing and the navel-gazing and get on Team Biden and get moving as a party in the same direction, regardless of any headwinds in terms of public perception. And let's close that gap on the basis of performance.
Well, but the perception, though, is real. And you see all these polls. These are Democrats that like Joe Biden, that don't like Donald Trump, that are concerned about his age, and that don't like the idea of an 86-year-old president at the end of his term. Do they not have a point?
Maybe I have more of my father in me than I thought. I'm a romantic. Wisdom, capacity to deliver, not just a performance, but to deliver results. I'm for actual results. I have no interest. We did the 4 years of The Apprentice. It didn't work out for this country or the world. It's not about performance, politics. It's about actually making a difference in real people's lives. This guy has proven his capacity to do it with one of the smallest governing majorities in American history. And he's done more than any president in 2.5 years, and at least in my lifetime, in most of our lives.
But you know, people will say like Dianne Feinstein, who had been so effective for California for so long, and it's a fact that she's diminished in the last few years.
Yeah.
Are people concerned that maybe as he gets older, he may diminish?
I don't know if diminishing means bringing Japan and South Korea together. It was a masterclass a few weeks ago. Diminishing was cleaning Kevin McCarthy's clock on the debt bill, debt ceiling, just a few months ago. I mean, he keeps delivering over and over and over again. So I'm not seeing signs of slowing down in that respect, quite the contrary. And again, what he was able to do with the CHIPS and Science Act, for those in California, I mean, this is happening in real time. We're about to announce a big deal with Applied Materials, billions and billions of dollars being invested in the state, more factory jobs, 800,000 more manufacturing jobs. Trump talks about this, and you actually saw 2.9 million jobs leave this country, meaning more people ended up on the unemployment line because of the Trump administration. Biden's created 13.5 million jobs. It's a masterclass of results. Not everyone's feeling it equally. I get the anxiety, and inflation's been anxiety-inducing. It's global, but no one cares about it being global. They care that the price of eggs is higher than it was 3 or 4 years ago. But it's also true, we've now closed that gap. We're seeing wages outpace now inflation. Things are turning in the right direction, and the guys on the other side, the folks on that stage, don't have a clue what to do about it. They want to roll back all these progress and increase costs for middle class. They don't have an economic plan except cut taxes, which in and of itself is inflationary.
This week we learned that it's going to happen, a debate between you and Ron DeSantis, November 30th, Fox News Channel, Sean Hannity in Georgia without a crowd, just the two of you. Why are you doing that, and what is your strategy?
Well, I don't know if that's the right question. Why is he doing it is the right question. He's running, I think, I'm not sure after tonight, but currently he's running for President of the United States.
And you think he's still going to be? You think he'll still be a candidate on November 30th?
That's an open-ended question. Part of me wonders if, the fact that he took this debate, the fact that he took the bait in relation to this debate, shows that he's completely unqualified to be president of the United States. That's my humble first.
Why is that? You're baiting him with the debate offer?
Of course. I mean, why is he debating a guy who's not even running for president when he's running for president? He's showing up at the Reagan Library, hallowed ground, and he puts out an ad today, not for his presidential campaign, to promote a debate against the governor of California. I mean, this guy's distracted. So I don't know that he has it in his heart. I think, here's my personal opinion about Ron DeSantis, he regrets running for president. He made a huge mistake. He listened to his consultants. He bought his own hype. He had this little God complex. I mean, look at the ads themselves. Literally, God created. I mean, he bought into all this stuff. And he quickly regretted it, but he's stuck. And here's the problem. He had one chance at first impression. He's belly flopped. He's down 30-plus points from where he started. So it's a terrible situation for him. And so he's desperate for attention, and he's trying to get it from the governor of California. What I'm going to give him is the ability to make his case, but we will be making our case for blue state America anew, and I hope he's prepared for that.
And that's what the strategy is?
My strategy is just being able to sleep at night. My strategy is highlighting his weakness masquerading as strength. My strategy is to expose his hypocrisy. Let me give you a proof point on hypocrisy. You're going to hear something tonight. I love this. Here's a guy who's attacking the Biden administration for not drilling on federal lands and on more state lands, who signed an executive order in 2019 to deny offshore oil drilling in his state. Either he's naive, doesn't even know his own record, or he's a fraud or a hypocrite. The point is, there's so many examples of that DeSantis that I look forward to sharing with the American people.
A couple California questions. You're in the midst of deciding to sign or not sign literally thousands of bills right now. I can imagine how many people are pulling at you in a bunch of different directions.
I don't have my cell phone for a reason.
It's a lot for people to think about, but just for clarity's purposes, is there a particular bill that you're especially excited about or especially proud of that you think people need to know about?
Well, there were some in the last 48 hours. There are two that I just signed that I think are very important and very much meet this moment in point of contrast with what's going on at the Reagan Library tonight. One is a ban on book bans. Penn America just put out their latest study during the school year last year. 3,362 books were banned. 3,300 books were banned in this country, 1,400 in the state of Florida. They're on a banning binge. I mean, next they'll literally be burning books in our lifetime. That's number one. We just passed that. Number two, gun safety. Good enough never is. We've led the national conversation on gun safety. Ronald Reagan did in 1967, signing the first gun safety bill in U.S. history. That said, we're not satisfied where we are, and we passed a law requiring an 11% excise tax on the distributors and manufacturers and wholesalers of guns for ammunition. I think that's right, maintains our leadership, and addresses the issue of our time, the number one killer of our kids, guns, and allows California once again assert its leadership in stark contrast to these guys that don't even believe in background checks for convicted felons.
I know you're also spending a lot of money to try to prosecute and convict people associated with retail theft.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with prosecutors like George Gascon that they will do enough on that front?
Look, we all have to do enough. I'm out here to cast aspersions, not here to point fingers. We're here to provide unprecedented support. We just did $267 million to 55 cities and counties for vertical prosecution, to hold folks accountable and to make sure that we are sending not just a message, but we're putting people in jail. It's out of control. It's unacceptable. You saw what happened in Philadelphia last night. It's not unique to California. What is unique is our approach with this retail theft task force and local task forces that have done the following. Just in the last few years, 1,850 investigations, 1,250 arrests, tens of millions of dollars recovered. We're actually making progress.
One big trip that you're going on in the next month is to China. We're going to focus on climate change and meet with local leaders there. What's the message there? What's the point of that trip? What are you looking forward to?
There's no point of fooling people that we're ever going to address the issue of climate change unless we deal with the fact that two of the largest emitters on planet Earth are the United States and China. 42% of the world's emissions. So unless the United States and China create a pact to address low carbon green growth and establish a framework of engagement despite all the noise and the back and forth, we're in real trouble. I don't need to give anybody any more evidence of that. 10,000 world records, or 10,000 records around the world were broken this year, 5,000 in the United States. We broke the record in August, 23 $1 billion plus disasters related to Mother Nature. I mean, this is bankrupting the state, it's impacting our kids. They're choking up, heating up, or burning up in the western United States, the droughts. So we have to engage China. That's the purpose of my trip. All that other noise, all the other rancor, I'll leave that to these guys to demagogue tonight and to others to address. Biden's doing, I think, a very good job in that respect. But on the issue of climate, it's just too important. My kids, your kids are too important.
Speaking of kids, just to wrap things up, your kids are now old enough, or some of them are old enough to sort of get what's going on when it comes to this election.
Well, by the way, full disclosure, one was old enough just to get a cell phone. Forgive me, but 14. I think it's still too young, but I find
so they got, because when we talked to your wife, she said none of your kids had a cell phone.
No,
So now
I personally went to the mall and bought her a pink cell phone 2 days ago. I regret it already. 48 hours later, like actually real life.
Yeah.
Regret it.
Why the decision to do that?
I couldn't take it. They win. They just every day. Every one of my friends has it. Dad, I can't talk. It's just she wins. With a lot of restrictions, we have a contract we signed. I think she's already broken it like 5 times.
What's in the contract?
I don't know. I think there should be some civil penalties. So I need to, I don't know what to do at this stage.
Yeah.
But already it's tough. Anyway, forgive me. I
that's an interesting aside. But speaking of just the stakes for this election, how do you talk about this election with your kids? Because I know a lot of their friends are Republicans and Republican parents and things like that too.
Think about what kids care about most. They care about going to school and not worrying about being shot, because they're doing drills about the prospect of a shooter coming into their schools. I mean, I had one of my kids talk about, Dad, can you get one of those bulletproof backpacks? Mm-hmm. How's that even possible? Climate change, existential for these kids. They're inheriting a world. This is, I mean, Bobby Kennedy Jr. said it beautifully. He says, these guys are in the business of the planet in liquidation. I mean, this is their inheritance, that we are destroying this planet. Think about the issues that are not being addressed on the debate stage tonight. Those are the issues that kids care about most. And democracy, I'm a little old-fashioned, I also think matters to these kids, to have more voice and choice, not authoritarianism, and the right and freedoms that, frankly, I took for granted the last 50 years, particularly for my daughters, right? Not just to access to reproductive care, but also to contraception. And you'll see Nikki Haley tonight, who said women don't care about contraception. This is a very consequential moment for our kids.
And since you brought the name up, Bobby Kennedy Jr.,
Yeah.
our Bobby Kennedy, who is your hero, your dad was close with him,
Yeah.
you revere him, you've studied him,
Yep.
his son is running for president, we talked to him recently.
Yeah.
What do you make of that, and what do you think he would make of that?
Well, I think no one was better 10, 15 years ago on the environment. Bobby Kennedy set the bar, Junior that is, next level in terms of being able to speak in spiritual terms about the environment that brought people from all walks of life. I love that guy. Things have changed. He's a true believer. I respect that and just have different points of view. I don't want to talk down to someone or past someone, but on the spectrum, there are a lot of issues where I just think he's gone a little too far, and I just don't align with that, and that's hard because, yeah, I'm a romantic. I'm a kid of the 60s, late 60s, but the vernacular of the 60s, solving ignorance and poverty and disease, Sar Shriver, Bobby Kennedy, hard-headed pragmatism, the right values. So he can lay claim to a lot of that. I wish that's what this campaign was about, not the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories.
And when we talked to him, we asked if it's Trump versus Biden. He said he was sort of undecided on where he's going to go.
Enough said there.
Yeah.
That's, to me, disqualifying that as a candidate for a Democratic Party. Bobby should know better than that. That's an easy choice.
So for you, though, and we can wrap up on this, how does the world look different if Donald Trump wins the presidency again versus another term of Biden-Harris?
I don't want to say we're a remarkably resilient country, but he tested us to the extreme. And we were on the front end of that. We had 70, speaking of the environment, 70 lawsuits against Trump, 7-0. He tried to destroy Ronald Reagan's hard-fought waiver on tailpipe emissions. He tried to vandalize all our progress across the board. This is a full-on code red moment in American history, world history. I talked to world leaders. I was just at the United Nations last week. Not one of them came up to me without going, "Do you think this guy can win?" That's how panicked the world is in relationship to this choice. And that's why, for me, we don't have a choice. We don't have time to discuss polls, who's up, who's down, how old or young someone is, how this. It's time all of us get on the Biden train, get focused, get serious. This is a fundamental question. Someone who believes in democracy and someone that believes in someone who fundamentally does not believe in the principles of our founding fathers. And I think it's just that stark of a contrast.
Governor Gavin Newsom, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's a more sober way to end than usual, but it's a sober moment.